nothing but the truth. Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa of India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. This is my weekly X-ray of key issues that matter to you without holding back on the truth. In this episode, we are going to talk about something invisible to the naked eye, yet absolutely essential to almost every part of our lives. It's the semiconductor chips. We will focus on the worrying fact that India is forced to import 95% of its annual requirement of 19 billion semiconductor chips, and then look at the great Gambit launched by the Modi government to make the country self-reliant in this vital resource. We also have a special interview with Union Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnaw, where he talks in depth about India's massive semiconductor mission that was launched 3 years ago and the progress it has made so far. But first, let's look at why the semiconductor chips have become so essential to our lives. And just look at it, from the smartphone in your pocket, to the washing machine in your home, the car you drive or the motorcycle you ride, even our missiles and spacecraft that guard our skies, all of them have to rely on these tiny electronic chips that we have. They are in fact the beating heart of the information age that we live in. But here's the big catch. Making these tiny silicon brains is one of the most complex feats of modern engineering. A single chip, quarter the size of, say, your middle finger or even your forefinger, the nail of your forefinger, can hold thousands of microscopic transistors. Now, these are etched on what are called silicon wafers, and if you look at a wafer, it's almost like the old long-playing record discs that we used to have, those vinyl discs that we used to put and listen to music. It's about that size, and they have to put over 500 kinds of chemicals, gaseous and electrical processes to embed those chips into this silicon wafer. Even a speck of dust can destroy a chip, and which is why factories operate like operating theaters. In fact, when I visited semiconductor chip factories that are just coming up in Gujarat and of course in Mohali, I had to wear sanitized gowns, caps and gloves so that I didn't contaminate it, and everybody around. The plants were like spanking white hospitals with machines and assembly lines all laid out neatly. Not too many people around. Largely it's robotic arms and machines that do all the precision work of making these chips. And let's remember, because of all this, because of the sophistication, just think about it. In a size, the finger, this little nail that you have or your thumbnail, you're mounting close to 10,000 to 20,000 tiny transistors. That is the kind of precision that they're looking at, and these have to be wired. And a single chip has something like 40 kilometers of wiring itself. You can't see them, it's so thin, you have to look through a microscope to see it, and that's why semiconductor chips are capital intensive. You have to spend a lot of money, billions of dollars, not just in terms of getting cutting edge equipment and technology, but the usage of rare materials, and of course you have to have decades of accumulated know-how on how to make these chips. And that's the reason why only a handful of companies, mostly in Taiwan, which is the leader, South Korea, China, and the US, that dominates global production. In fact, the US at one time dominated semiconductor chip making with Intel and other companies, but now that is taken over by Taiwan, which is now the world leader, closely followed by Samsung and China, though US still retains a lot of the knowledge, particularly when it comes to design of chips. But we are looking at the manufacture of chips, and that's what we have, when we look at it, there is a true, what we could call a chip crunch in India. Sorry for the alliteration, but that's the way it is. There is a major semiconductor chip crunch in India, And despite India being software giants, we're so proud of our software industry, we are pygmies when it comes to making these chips. In fact, we have made many attempts in the past 6 decades, but have failed miserably to master the complex art of chip making. And the costs of this particular neglect, let's put it that way, or apathy, or an inability, whatever words you'd like to look at it, is mounting. As I had mentioned earlier, India consumes nearly 19 billion chips a year, but the import, we are forced to import almost 95% of these chips, and our import bill is over rupees 1.7 lakh crore annually. Now, just to put that amount, because crores always difficult to fathom, let's just put that amount that I'm talking about, rupees 1.71 lakh crore, into perspective. It's more than double what the government spends on its Jal Jeevan mission to bring tap water supply to every rural household. Government spends an average of 67,000 crores annually to do this. Our import bill just on chips alone is 1.2 lakh to 1 lakh crores. And if we look at the fact that our chip market is going to double from what is now $50 billion to close to $100 billion by 2030, experts warn that we might soon have to spend as much on chips as we do on importing crude oil. And yet, it's not just an economic problem that we are talking about. We saw that the COVID pandemic showed us the danger of being dependent on various other countries for chips. When supply chains broke down, global supply chains broke down during COVID, and China held back a lot of its chips, our automobile and electronic sectors suffered with massive delays and costs. And let's look at today's tense geopolitical scene that's there, where we have seen Trump weaponize tariffs, and very soon countries will weaponize access to chips. And that is why you realize why chips are now as strategic as oil resources used to be or continue to be. And take a look at Operation Sindoor, India's response to the Pahalgam terror attack in April when India attacked Pakistan. We found that autonomous missiles and drones guided by advanced semiconductor processors played a dominant role, in fact, in some senses, a decisive role in the war. And that's why in December 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the India Semiconductor Mission. It's a bold plan, a great gambit. It's worth a massive 76,000 crore rupees. And the goal isn't just to make a few chips, but to create an entire ecosystem from the design of chips, which I told you about, which is what we are good at, in the sense that almost 20% of the global workforce that is working on the design of chips are Indian, but where we lack is truly manufacturing chips, that is the foundries and the fabrication units, which I showed you in terms of, or talked about in terms of the silicon wafers, the making of that, then the carving out of the chips from that, the testing, the packaging that goes into it, all highly sophisticated. And this is what we want to do. This ambitious program that Prime Minister Modi has launched 3 years ago is to build that entire ecosystem. Now, what they've done, what the Modi government has done, has a very interesting twist. Normally, the government would have offered loans to companies, and this time the effort is completely dominated by the private sector, and that's where the Modi government wants the biggest emphasis. So instead of offering loans or performance-linked incentives, as they've done in other centers, the Modi government is giving massive, really massive grants to private players worth 50% of the cost that they might have to incur while investing in these companies. So for every rupee a company spends, the center chips in with a matching rupee. And what's more, you have states, wherever these plants are being located, and 10 of them have come up in the past 3 years, the states then give another 20 to 30% of it. So in effect, a company that invests, say, 1,000 crores in a project. In fact, semiconductor projects are nothing less than 2,000, 3,000 and can go up to 90,000 crores as the Tata's most recent unit is. What it does is if you take 1,000 crores, then the government gives as much as 700 crores in grant. They don't want it back. That's the big risk the government is taking, and the company concerned has to put in 300 crores. And so if you look at it, the government is funding up to 70% of the cost, and you can ask why, and that's because, as I had mentioned earlier, chip making isn't like setting up a textile mill. The risks are huge. The failures are many, the technology changes are rapid, and the entry barriers are truly sky high. So therefore, by giving these grants, it lowers the risk and attracts credible global players to partner with Indian firms. And that's exactly what we have seen in the past 3 years. Tata's has moved in with a mega fabrication plant coming up in Dholera in Gujarat in collaboration with PSMC, which is the third largest fabrication unit in Taiwan, which I told you earlier is the leader in such fabrication or foundries that are there. And the cost of that project alone is 91,000 crores, of which the government will give 70%. So Tata has actually invest 27,000 crores. That's the kind of division that is happening. And if you take a look at another big project, which is an assembly and testing project, which is called an outsourced assembly and testing project, or OSAT, Micron, the US giant, is setting up an assembly and a test unit in Sanand. And there are 8 other such projects spread across not just Gujarat, but other states, whether it's Uttar Pradesh, Assam, Odisha, and even Andhra Pradesh. These companies have already taken the money and are setting up units. In fact, I visited in Sanand one of the latest units formed by the Murugappa group in a tie-up with another international company, and they have investing on assembly and testing, again state-of-the-art equipment, and they've come up in just 8 months and in fact rolled out the earliest, their first made-in-India chips, as they call it, just a month ago, and they've sent it across for testing. In fact, Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw went to their plant to inaugurate that, because this is tremendous news. We finally are making. It's not like we don't make chips, we do. There is the semiconductor laboratory in Chandigarh, which was started in 1983, as far back as that. In fact, India was the leaders in some senses of the semiconductor business in those years, but then an unfortunate fire accident just gutted that entire laboratory, and after that the public sector semiconductor laboratory really had to struggle to get back to its feet. It does service India's space and defense sectors, our critical strategic sectors, including atomic energy, but they are largely now going to be an R&D unit. The government is spending money to revive that, and I went and saw the facilities, and certainly their morale is high after many decades of not being in some senses, a healthy state. But they struggled on and now are making a comeback. And very interestingly, the government, in part of this semiconductor mission, is getting students across, buying the tools. They are very expensive tools, software tools, to make the design of these chips. Once it is designed, then it is sent to the foundry for making. Now, what the government is doing is encouraging something like 278 universities, getting their students to make these chips, and then getting the semiconductor laboratory in Chandigarh or Mohali to make these chips so that they have proof of concept. Now, that's tremendous incentive, and as I said earlier, one of the big issues that we face and the rest of the world faces is skill shortage, or because the semiconductor business is so technical when it comes to it that you need particularly middle-level managers to manage it, and the country needs to train a lot more people. So this is a good effort by the government as part of the semiconductor mission to actually spend money on skill development, and the semiconductor laboratory is part of that movement. But what we are seeing in a big way is private companies that are stepping in, backed by the government support. Now, each chip or semiconductor chip made here, as one industry leader said, is like a step towards climbing Mount Everest. Tough but transformative. and puts India on the path of technological sovereignty. To understand the government's thinking behind India's high-risk semiconductor initiative, I had the pleasure of interviewing the dynamic Union Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnaw. It's worth listening in because Ashwini Vaishnaw has this ability to translate some of the most complex information into very simple understanding of what's happening. So do listen in to this interview, and then I'll talk to you later. And today we have a very special guest, Ashwini Vaishnaw, who is a minister, union minister for three important ministries: Ministry of Railways, Information Broadcasting, and Electronics and Information Technology. But today we will be focusing on the third hat that you wear, which is as important, Information and Electronics Technology, and looking particularly at semiconductor chips. That is now the heartbeat of the electronic industry, drives all our cell phones, laptops, cars, name it. Everything has to have a chip that drives it at the moment, and therefore very, very critical. I'm coming to a fundamental question. That is, in 1984, India seemed like ahead of this semiconductor chip race. It set up a laboratory called the Semiconductor Laboratory in Chandigarh. 40 years later, we seem to have missed the bus. We are now importing 95% of our chips. What went wrong from this particular thing that we started, which we should have been the leaders, but we are the laggards?
Thank you, Raj, for having me on India Today. It's very important that we understand the importance of semiconductor industry. You gave the examples of mobile phones, electronic items. Today, semiconductor chips are used in practically everything that uses electricity, whether it is a refrigerator at home, whether it is the television set, whether it is the scooty which uses battery and the engine is controlled by chips, whether it is a small car, big car, whether it is a train, aeroplane, practically everything in our life today has chips which control the electronic circuits. So it's very, very important to understand how this foundational industry works. When I say foundational industry, the word is synonym to the industries like steel industry, chemical industry, plastic industry. There are so many industries where if you have the basic foundation in your country, then you can build upon that foundation and create many other industries. For example, if you have the steel industry, then you can have steel fabrication, you can have manufacturing of machines, you can have construction of bridges, you can have construction of buildings. It's a very, very important industry, right? That is the nature of this industry. This is a very complex industry, significantly more complex than any other manufacturing activity that you would have ever seen. This complexity means that only a very few countries and a very few companies can really get into this.
It's a bit like space and atomic energy, where you have
exactly
an exclusive club that is there.
Very good analogy you have given. It's like space and atomic energy, where the talent required, the skills required, the knowledge required is very deep.
Right.
Very deep. And it has to continuously evolve.
Right.
It cannot stay stagnant. It has to continuously evolve.
So, can I come to the primary question that I asked? Because the Prime Minister mentioned this on Independence Day. He said, we set up this chip plant in 1984 and we didn't seem to have...
No, so there is history even behind that, but I don't want to get into political discussion here. Fact is that in 1960s, Fairchild wanted to come and set up a plant here, then Intel wanted to come and set up their plant. It has been from 60 to present time, 60 to 2014, practically it has been a period of missed opportunities, but let's not get into that. What's important is, as our Prime Minister said, now we must be drivers of this bus. We should not be looking at the bus that we have missed. Forget the political setup of those times, that era. What's important is today our Prime Minister has a very clear vision, clear focus, laser sharp focus on execution to make sure that the semiconductor industry gets developed in our country.
Let's turn the question the other way. There were lessons that you have learned from that, those particular experience we had for 40 years. Let us now look at the Indian semiconductor mission that you launched in I think 22, January 22, announced in December 2021, if I remember, right? So how different is the approach of this particular mission? Because we did have a mission in 2007 also, that the Modi government initiated. How different is it from what was happened in the past, and what were the lessons you learned and incorporated and made sure it wouldn't happen in this?
What's important is we understand the nature of this industry. This industry works very well when the entire ecosystem gets developed. There are more than 500 chemicals which are used in manufacturing chips, right? There are more than 50 gases, and these are chemicals and gases where you measure purity not in parts per million, but in parts per billion and parts per trillion. These are ultra pure materials. For getting ultra pure materials, for getting that entire stability of the grid, getting that stability of the entire foundation, all those things are extremely important. One has to work very diligently to make sure that the entire ecosystem gets developed and the foundation of this industry gets laid properly, so that the industry can have a run for next 20, 30 years, 40 years. And we have to look at the entire value chain. The value chain starts with design, comes to fabrication, then comes ATMP, which is assembly, testing, marking and packaging. Then comes the modules. The modules go into the finished product. This is if you look at the value chain. This value chain is supported by next layer of all the chemicals and gases. Then the value chain is supported by a series of EDA tools, other consumables, all other items which go into this. The equipment which goes into manufacturing. Then comes the ultra pure materials which are used for manufacturing chips. So this is the complete ecosystem that needs to be built. You can't build just with a fab or setting up one unit. You have to look at the entire thing.
So how did the semiconductor mission that you've launched actually take care of all these processes, the ecosystem that you talk about?
We have worked diligently with every ecosystem player. Very diligently we have worked with chemical gases, with the equipment manufacturers, with the consumables, with the material suppliers, material manufacturers, with the state governments, with the local level panchayat and municipal governments. We have really worked very diligently with the industry to come up to this stage today. And
when you say this stage, what is the stage we are at today in this journey? It's now 3 years since you launched it. What is the stage?
This is an industry which requires a minimum of 10 years to get established. That's the experience everywhere in the world. China took, I think, about 20 plus years. Japan began way back after the Second World War, and US it started somewhere during the Second World War and immediately after that. So this really takes some significant time and effort to build up. So today we are at a stage where 10 units are under construction or under planning. The first unit which has started pilot production, and we have the pilot production chips in this entire thing. You can see the pilot line chip. This is CG semi line, which is the pilot line. Keynes pilot production will start very soon in next few days.
First one is from Micro.
This is from CG Semi. This is from Keynes, and this is from Micron. Again, they are going to start the production in around December.
So in that value chain that you talked of, the ecosystem, these companies fit in where in it? You started with the fact that you have to do the fab and the ground level. Where do you set up industries in
this value chain? Design, we all know that we have a very good strength,
which is indigenous.
Yes, our people, a lot of companies working here.
The GCCs.
The GCCs, and recently we inaugurated one facility of ARM, which will be designing the most advanced 2 nanometer chips.
Wow, which is like the cutting edge.
The cutting edge, right? So that's really satisfying that. And again, the entire end-to-end design is going to happen.
So that's one big component.
Then many startups are already supported under the design-linked incentive that we have. They are coming up to speed. They are getting VC funding. Their products are getting validated. So the design piece is in good shape. Fab, we have selected one fab, Tata fab, which will be set up in Dholera. Construction is going on at very good pace. ATMP, we got 8 units. We have 2 fabs and 8 ATMP units.
That is the testing.
Assembly testing, and assembly is again a very, very complex thing. If you look at this, this is the wafer, right?
Right. Oh.
A raw wafer would look something like this.
Okay.
And this is of course
This
the
is
substrate.
silicon base, right?
Yeah. Inside is silicon, then there is a cover of other materials which give the strength to the wafer. This is now once the wafer is raw wafer is put into the fab, this has to be fabricated. Fabricated means you have to draw the circuit on the wafer. Now imagine if you, let's take this leaf.
Right.
Let's take this leaf, right?
Right.
This is a small leaf, small piece of a leaf. What can you write on this? You can write Raj Chengappa on it.
No, not even that.
Now I ask you to write the entire India Today on this.
Right.
Entire India Today.
Right.
Your one full copy of it, right?
Right.
Then I ask you to write 10,000 copies of India Today
Right.
ever since it began on
Right.
it.
50 years ago.
50 years ago.
Right.
Then I ask you to write all the magazines which are published in India on this small piece of leaf, right? That's the fineness with which we have to work. So that is what nanometers is, right?
To say a nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter, right? That's the unit that we're looking at. So it's even thinner than your hair.
Significantly thinner, 10,000 times thinner.
Right.
Hair is 10,000 times thicker than a nanometer.
And on this, you will embed millions of transistors and circuits that are there.
That has to be embedded on this.
Got it. So this is the what you
This
call
is
the
fabrication.
Fabrication.
Now,
Yeah.
once you fabricate on this, you have to take out that small little thing which not even visible to naked eye. It has to be seen through very, very sophisticated equipment.
Right.
Not even a simple microscope will be able to show you. Right. That has to be taken out and given a body. Right. So that body has to be given, and like for example, I'll use this very small thing. Yeah. This is now a body which is given to a very small little chip inside.
Right. Almost like a SIM card size.
Yes, but there's a very complex ecosystem built in this now. Right. There is a plumbing system, there is an electrical system. Many of the chips would be so complex. For example, this chip that you see here, this chip that you see here has multiple stories inside, multiple floors like a building complex.
10
it is
story,
a
20
10
story,
story, 20 story, 30 story kind of thing.
This is called the GPUs, or this is the...
This is a microprocessor, this is a controller. Now, so there has to be a plumbing between those stories. Right. There has to be a lift which has to take things from up and down. There has to be service lift, passenger lift. There has to be electrical connections. There has to be some people living in top floor having different way of working. Some people living in middle floors, different way of living. So it's very. Yeah, it's many cities.
City, that's right. So you've got 8 companies that are
is
doing
the process of ATMP.
ATMP. Right.
Taking that small little tiny thing
then,
and giving it this.
Right. And then you have the packaging.
Then the module. This is a module.
Okay, that is the packaging.
No. Packaging is making this body.
Okay, that. And then you...
So this is as complex as fabrication. Not exactly as complex, but a couple of orders different, but very, very complex. Excellent. Very, very complex.
So you have now set up...
So 8 units of this, 2 units of fab.
So you have covered the spectrum of the universe or ecosystem as you
Then comes the module making.
I see.
Module making is in electronics.
Right.
That is where the electronics comes in, electronics manufacturing comes in.
This is what gets into your laptop or whatever it is.
Correct. This then finally goes into the finished product. Right.
So if you take a look at what the government's policy was to invite these big companies to do it, what are the kind of incentives you all gave? And compared to other industries, why did you all do this?
See, the global benchmark, if you look at what our countries which are of our size have done, they have poured in billions and billions of dollars in this entire industry, because this is a strategic industry. This industry requires support through the vicious cycles which come in, and the way the industry is growing and the way as I said right at the beginning, the nature of this industry is today of a foundational industry. Right. So being a foundational industry, it has to be supported by government, and across the world, that is the practice, and we also followed the best practices of the world and created
So what were the incentives you all offered companies?
We have offered incentives which are in line with the semiconductor mission policy, which is supporting the capital expenditure as well as supporting the...
That's 50% of the investments government...
Yeah, of the eligible investment is
and
there.
25% the state...
Some state governments have supported.
Will chip in. That's the basic thing. Totally, how much has come in the last 3 years since we set up this thing?
We have the numbers.
I think it's $18 billion?
It's around that, yeah, it's about $18-19 billion.
Right, so that has come in now, and are you planning to do more, set up more such units, or what is the process?
The world today trusts India.
Right.
The way our foreign policy has been conducted over the last 11 years,
right.
The way we have come up as a very trusted country,
right.
Trusted partner, the world trusts us. That's why every ecosystem partner,
and you take
the
from
equipment manufacturers, right. They are coming to India.
Right.
They have already set up their bases here.
Right.
They are also going a level deeper now. For example, a few days back I was in Bengaluru, and we saw some of the components which go into equipment manufacturing.
Right.
So equipment manufacturing has also started. So look at this. We are going to manufacture chips.
Right.
We are going to manufacture the machines which make chips.
Right.
We are going to manufacture the materials which make chips.
Right.
That's the whole ecosystem we are working on.
I have a lot of things that happen in, say, aviation, making our fighter jets. We imported those parts. We got them what they call semi-knocked down or completely knocked down kits and assembled them here. How much of know-how and know-what is being supplied by these international companies when they set up these, or is it just they will make and we don't understand the technology?
No, it's not that. I was, in fact, yesterday this last visit to Bengaluru, when I was discussing with the team which manufactures the components,
right.
I was very pleasantly surprised that the main manufacturer of the capital equipment,
right.
They basically gave them the design specs.
Okay.
Not a print to manufacture.
Right, not a blue, and you just have
No. They gave the specs, design specs, and this team designed the entire components,
right.
The series of components, and then supplied, and the feedback is that the components designed are significantly better than the components which are currently used in the print to manufacture.
Even in these 10 companies that India has invested in and jointly developing it, they have agreed to transfer the technology to their partners that are here, and therefore...
And some of the technologies we have already developed ourselves.
Right.
In a research unit in Vemgal,
right.
Tatas have already they have developed the technology for the ATMP.
So there is a tech transfer part in this.
Tech transfer as well as own development.
Okay.
Both.
So that
tech
is going
transfer,
simultaneously.
own development.
Now, when can we expect the first made in India chip to come out?
This year already.
Yes.
This is our first made in India chips, this entire set, and these are the student chips.
Correct. Yeah, I'm saying commercially.
This is a commercial chip from the pilot line.
From the pilot line.
Yeah.
So it's already out, you're saying, a made in India chip.
Correct.
The Prime Minister unveiled a made in India chip called Vikram, which is the 30
that is from the SCL Mohali.
Right. The only thing, and which was done with a lot of fanfare, of course, an achievement, but given the fact that your own computer has a 64-bit chip and this is a 32-bit chip, why do we think that this is a significant development when actually these processors have gone far more sophisticated than what this particular chip does?
We should have had a leadership like Modi ji's leadership 60 years back, right?
Right.
Then we would have not lost those so many decades that we lost.
Right.
We would have gone ahead significantly earlier.
Right.
But now we are definitely on track to achieve some of the best devices.
Okay. So if you take a look at our design strength that you talked about, how much of that can we leverage into this? We, I think, constitute almost 60% of
20% of the global design capability.
20% itself, okay. And so how much of that can be now utilized and brought into this huge semiconductor industry that
it is playing out very nicely because there is a natural flow from design to manufacturing.
Right.
The example that I gave you of the components, because of the design strength,
right.
the global equipment manufacturers They are giving the design specs. They are saying that, okay, I want something which will withstand this much pressure, withstand this kind of temperature. This is the plasma environment in which it has to function, and this is the precision with which. And then we come out with the product itself.
Okay.
So our design capability is our biggest strength. We must build upon the design capability in a very significant way.
Now you have these big chip makers like TSMC, NVIDIA, and the Chinese, of course. Will any of these collaborate with us, or are in talks with them?
One of the big ones, PSMC, has collaborated with Tata's, and Micron is among the top 5 in the world. So they are also here.
Not looking at Taiwan and bringing their
PSMC is from Taiwan.
From there, but the big guys, no.
They will also come. Obviously, they will all come.
Now take a look.
When the journey begins,
right?
See, it's very important to understand when you start a totally new industry.
Right.
The world will always look at you with a question mark.
Correct. Yes.
So those question marks are now behind us. In this semicon, ASML joined us.
Right.
When ASML joined in a large contingent, and
you'll have to describe ASML to us.
ASML is the most complex equipment manufacturer without which no chip can be built.
Right.
It's from Netherlands. It's a company which is today among the most strategic companies in the entire world.
Right.
Between TSMC and ASML, the world cannot function without these two companies. That's the importance of these two companies. ASML came in full contingent. Their entire top leadership was present here, and they very categorically said that we now believe that India is absolutely on the right track to become a semiconductor nation.
It's a good time to ask you the question is, we are now importing close to 95% of our chips. How do you see in the next 5-10 years we start now making them indigenously and not cut down on our exports?
Very good question.
Yeah.
If you look at the way we have selected our 10 projects,
right?
All the 10 projects, if you look at it, we have practically covered every sector. Mm-hmm. I'll talk about some of the sectors. Memory, which goes into practically everything. Power electronics, which is very crucial to your electric vehicle industry, trains, your large machines, industrial electronics, all that. Then comes the consumer electronics.
Right.
The display module, which drives every TV and every display, that is part of our program. Mm-hmm. Silicon carbide, which is a material for the future, that's part of our program. RF, telecom, which are used in radio, radar, all that thing, that is part of our program. So we have practically covered every segment, all the medical electronics which is required, that's also part of the program. Right. So we are practically very methodic, and the entire semiconductor mission is run by professionals.
That's true.
It's run by professionals.
No more
no, it's not
government or public sector.
We have some of the topmost brains working on it.
Right.
And people like Vinod Dham, who's father of Pentium.
And that's the difference you brought in, I would gather, in this mission that is
correct. The mission is run by professionals.
Right.
And they are the ones who are guiding us in this entire thing. So we are able to today cover practically every segment. So as these facilities start coming online, we will have a significant part of our domestic demand met. But we must also understand that semiconductor is a global industry.
Right.
It's an industry which is absolutely global. It doesn't know the barriers of country's boundary, and it has to, each material, each component has to pass through multiple boundaries every time it becomes a finished.
And I think that's a very good point, because COVID showed us how how important it is for this value chain to exist. And there China was a sticking factor by denial of a lot of these things, and we ran into issues. Given the fact that there's a thaw in our relationships with China, how do you see our collaboration with China on this? Because they're also a world leader on semiconductors. Do you see, firstly, opening out for them, supplying whatever we need, plus collaborations with them on any other front?
We'll see as it goes.
Okay. You're not ruling out any of this, as I can see from what you're answering.
We'll see. We'll see as things develop.
Geopolitics, that's the other big thing that's there. America, for instance, has been demanding from Apple to set up their factories over there, and somewhat tells, saying very directly, as President Donald Trump says, not come back here, not in India. How is our reaction to these kind of things when you have a US president wanting to get back all this, make in America, and we are doing Make in India?
See, today's world is very different from the past. It's a world full of turbulence. It's a world full of so many different geopolitical changes which are happening. It's very important that we understand what is our role in this world. Our role is to be a trusted partner to the growth story that is visible in our country, making sure that we contribute based on our strengths, we contribute to the global economy. We will continue to strengthen our position. We will continue to strengthen our industry. Our electronics component manufacturing scheme is now out, and we are expecting 60,000 crore rupees investment in electronics component manufacturing. Many of the units which are coming are going to be at a global scale. We recently inaugurated a plant where the batteries used in mobile phones, they are manufactured there, and it's a very, very large plant. It will be meeting close to the lines which got inaugurated, it will be meeting close to 40% of our battery requirement from one single plant.
So you're saying Apple is not going back? Apple will be here?
Every manufacturer who has come here
will stay.
Is very comfortable here. They are working very diligently. Of course, they have their own policies. I wouldn't like to comment on their policies. From government side, as a nation, we are very clear we must strengthen our base.
Right. If you take a look at the other aspect, and I quickly want to do two areas. One is, of course, the whole business of AI, which is now coming in. You have a artificial intelligence mission. How does this dovetail into that? Because in AI you need giant processors, GPUs.
Absolutely, the chips, high bandwidth,
yeah.
The high bandwidth memory chips which will be manufactured by Micron, the processors which are getting developed at IIT and CDAC, right. All those play into the entire AI journey. And I think the way we have consolidated all our forces and properly used the strengths that we have, both the public sector strengths and the private sector strengths, I think that's going to be a good journey.
Would we be a player? Because so far we have not been a big player where AI is coming. You have ChatGPT, you've got all the big companies doing it. Where do you see our entry?
See, the world of AI models is evolving.
Right.
If you talk to the experts, they will say that yes, there will be a few very large models, but the big value will come from very small focused models which are focused on solving a problem. For example, yesterday we empaneled 8 new model makers, where one of them is focused on material science.
Right.
Another one is focused on weather forecasting. Another one is focused on agriculture.
So you're doing the niche things.
Yeah. Each of these niche will be very important for us, because then we can solve some of the population scale problems using these technologies.
2 questions. One is coming back to geopolitics. India has an agreement with US on critical and emerging technologies signed by the previous administration. Do you see the current administration, despite whatever the differences we've had on the tariff front, encourage us, because that was a critical...
There is good collaboration at all levels.
And that you see, that has not been reflected in terms of...
Absolutely, it's going on very well.
But there have also issues of our employment over there with the H-1B visas and the fact, how is that being sorted out?
Yes. No, we are working very diligently with the US government on every aspect of our economy.
And finally, this is the last question I have, is in terms of what we're doing in semiconductor technology, would this be, and that's why the previous question I asked you, would we now be able to drive a lot of jobs into this, and what is the potential on that front?
See, we started this program of talent development.
Right.
We took like in telecom, we had 5G labs set up in 100 universities.
Right.
So that the students basically get the right, absolutely hands-on experience of the technology. Mm-hmm. Similarly, in semiconductors, we have given the latest design tools to 278 universities.
Oh, wow.
And these are latest tools from Cadence, Synopsys, Siemens, some of the most latest tools which are actually used in the industry, the IP cores which are used in the industry.
Right.
And the result is, in a very short time frame of 2.5 years, students have designed chips. These are the student designed chips.
Interesting.
These are the student designed chips.
Based on the equipment.
Based on the design tools that they have access to. And we have used the Semiconductor Limited Mohali to tape out these chips.
Okay.
To manufacture this chip, fabricate these chips. Now, if you are a startup, right, and you design, you have a great concept, you get the design tools and then you design a chip.
Right.
Until and unless you give a very large order, no manufacturer in Taiwan, South Korea will ever even touch your chip. So we have created a concept by which even if somebody wants to manufacture 10 chips,
Right.
we are using the semiconductor laboratory as a platform for giving that opportunity.
Excellent.
And we are modernizing Semiconductor Limited SCL Mohali
Right.
to increase the production, modernize the technology, and simultaneously use it as a research base for our students. Very few countries in the world can today claim that their students, university and college students, can design and tape out chips.
This is going to be a huge driver of jobs. You
Absolutely. That much in emphasis we have given to talent.
So you're building the knowledge, know-how, and the design capability. Final is, how would you say 5 years from now or 10 years from now, what will India's semiconductor industry look like? What is the vision you have?
It will be a very comprehensive industry. 5 years down the line, we would be manufacturing chips, we would be having a lot of R&D, we would be having great equipment manufacturing ecosystem. We would be having some of the most complex and most required new materials like silicon carbide being manufactured, the material itself being manufactured in India, gallium nitride being manufactured in India. The chemical guys are already setting up the base. They are looking at India as a research and development and manufacturing base. So it's a journey which will become a very significant industry in the coming years.
How would you characterize it? Would you say it become the hub? Would it be cutting edge?
It will be a comprehensive industry. Starting at 28 nanometers was a very, very important decision we took.
Right.
And now once we learn how to make 28 nanometers, then we must move towards the other leading
28 just to explain to our viewers, listeners, 28 nanometers is the fundamental basic thing that drives much of what we do.
Close to 60% of the semiconductor market, 60% of this entire market is about 28 nanometers and above.
Right, okay.
So it's a very important, 28 nanometer goes into all your refrigerators, TV, everything, practically every consumer electronics that we use. So it's very, very important, 28 nanometer and above.
So we'll be self-sufficient in that particular aspect?
That chip we start, then we move
to cutting edge.
To 7 nanometers, towards 7 nanometers.
Wow.
And it's a very complex journey. It will require lots and lots of efforts. It's not like any other manufacturing activity, as I explained, the complexity of it.
Well, Ashwini Vaishnaw, thank you very much. I think you've lucidly explained it, given us your vision on where semiconductor is doing, what India has done in these last 5 years or so to really bring us up to speed with what is happening across the world and possibly India becoming a semiconductor hub for the world. Thank you very much for the time you've taken.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you. So there you have it. Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, with an in-depth look at why India launched this massive semiconductor mission to make India self-reliant in a very, very vital resource, the heartbeat of India's information age. And I hope you do get why it is so difficult to make these chips. What is the kind of effort that India has put in, the high risk that is involved in it, the big gambit it's taken in terms of granting money to private players to make these and therefore make India more self-reliant. The estimates are that by 2035, India would, if all these projects come through, will have be self-sufficient in terms of 35% of its needs. We'd still have to import 65%, and so people are now talking of not only having the India Semiconductor Mission 1, which is currently on, but going on to 2, and there they would like India, the experts would like India to firstly make all the various gases and chemicals that are required become self-sufficient in that, also to get to nodes that are much more sophisticated and more for in-depth advanced technological processors. For it, currently, the game plan is to make what is seen as the need for 60% of the market, which is good. We get the kind of expertise that is required since we are starting from scratch. And in phase 2, to really get down to some cutting-edge research in terms of chip making, which some of the leading companies are doing, and of course, making sure that there is enough market in the business so that these companies don't go out of business. And that's what we need to do in the stage 2. Once this stage, let's remember, this stage runs on for another 5 years, and we need to see the success of it. But in the meanwhile, experts say to go right ahead and do it. So, as I said, this is the Modi government's great gambit to make India self-reliant in semiconductor chips, and we do hope it succeeds and India succeeds in that endeavor. Do read the latest cover story of India Today magazine, where I've done an in-depth report on the semiconductor initiative that India has taken. The magazine is out, worth looking at. Thank you for being with me in this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing but the truth.